Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My question to the Premier. Using public dollars for partisan advertising is wrong. It's wrong when it's Stephen Harper. It's wrong when it's the Liberal Premier of Ontario. In fact, even the Liberal leader in Ottawa seems to think it's wrong to run partisan ads on the public dime. But the Liberal leader at Queen's Park is gutting the rules so she can run partisan ads on the public dime. Can the Premier explain why she's taking a page from Stephen Harper so she can run partisan ads on public dollars in the province of Ontario?
Well, Mr. Speaker, let me just say to the member opposite just to consider that we're the first and the only jurisdiction in Canada that has such legislation, Mr. Speaker, and we will continue to have legislation that will ban partisan advertising. That legislation will stay in place, and in fact, we're broadening that, Mr. Speaker. We're proposing that we broaden that legislation to make sure that in the digital realm, Mr. Speaker, the same rules apply. The fact is that we agree, Mr. Speaker, that we should strengthen this legislation. We also agree, Mr. Speaker, that it would be an important part of this legislation, this initiative, to look at the third-party advertising, Mr. Speaker, and to see if there are some limits that we need to put on third-party advertising. I suggest that those are things that the third party might want to support.
Right.
Premier, selling Hydro One is the wrong decision. People don't like it, and it's going to be the people of Ontario who are paying the price for that decision. The auditor says by gutting the rules about partisan advertising, and I quote, "The government could flood the province with self-congratulatory and self-promotional advertising." It's clear that the people oppose the sell-off of Hydro One. Even Liberal activists oppose the sell-off. The plan is good for consultants and it's good for bankers, but it's bad for families and businesses in this province. Is the Premier gutting the rules about partisan advertising so that she can run ads to try and sell the sell-off of Hydro One?
So, Mr. Speaker, you know, typically the third party is using language that really doesn't apply to what we're doing, Mr. Speaker. We're changing the legislation. We are proposing changes to the legislation. But let's talk about the changes that we're proposing, Mr. Speaker. We're proposing that we give the Auditor General oversight of digital advertising as well as transit and movie theatre ads, Mr. Speaker. The Auditor General has called for this. We're proposing that we do that. The legislation would also be amended to provide a clear definition of partisan advertising, require the government to submit a preliminary version of the ad to the AG for review, and reinforce rules around government advertising during general elections. Mr. Speaker, yes, we're proposing changes, but Mr. Speaker, the legislation banning partisan advertising would remain in place and would in fact be strengthened and clarified.